Have you ever noticed that toys have not just gotten way less quality, but also way more expensive? Well, it's not just you. And I personally think that this predominantly affects fashion dolls, especially dolls and toys that are geared towards girls, because the decline of the fashion doll is actually a symptom of something much larger. It's a tell, a sign of a quiet culture war, and the weapon is girls' childhoods. What if I told you this is sending a message that through this capitalistic society that we are living in, that it is now weaponizing the erasure of girlhood itself? Here's what I mean. When we push tween girls away from imaginative play, we are basically declining the concept that it is okay for them to play for dolls. It's childish, etc. It's pretending that it's embarrassing, that we're basically pushing girls, young girls, to grow up fast. And somehow that's better, question mark, to the sense where basically, you know that myth where, oh, girls mature faster than boys? You know that myth? We're going to actually elaborate on that later, so stay tuned for that. Imagination is not just about play, but it's actually the skill that allows women to participate in the creative economy, to build things, to envision things, things that don't exist yet, but are made into existence. In fact, I like to argue that the creator or the creative economy might be the only economy that will exist in the next decade. So when we're gatekeeping imaginative play from young girls by having them grow up fast and having them actually play with dolls less and grow up faster, and basically stop playing with imaginative toys way faster and way earlier on, we are inherently gatekeeping them from the power of imagination, which will actually maybe keep them away from participating in the economy through an executive level. According to this PubMed Central study from T. Blankard in 2016, it actually showed that when people had more exasperated or more bigger, more detailed imaginations, when they would imagine doing a task before completing the task, they actually developed a more mastery over the performative task much more quicker than the average person that did not have that type of mindset, which shows that imaginative play or imaginative thinking can lead to a quicker mastery over basic skills that are used in these economies in order to thrive, survive, and to, of course, obtain independent wealth. Through social conditioning, we are basically the patron saint of not letting girls participate in capitalism. And at the end, we're going to come to the conclusion. How is the erasure of tween girl era culture is a fight for women not to participate in the economy, but instead a bribe for us to train young girls into becoming caregivers first and sacrifice more than they need to. You heard me. What if I told you that this is an example of the erasure of girlhood, which is a symptom of a patriarchal, capitalistic society? And of course, if you're not new here, you should know patriarchy and capitalism are heavily intertwined. It creates an economic system that leverages gender inequality for profit, often relying on the gendered division of labor, assigning lower value or domestic, unpaid, or feminized work. Key elements of the intersection of this topic include invisible labor and social reproduction, where capitalism depends on the unpaid domestic labor of women and reproductive labor of women to sustain the workforce without bearing the cost. That there is economic inequality. Women are often paid less than men for the equivalent of work, and pink-collar jobs are frequently undervalued and underpaid. With the commodification of gender as well being another core sign where capitalism exploits patriarchal standards of charging higher prices for women's products, razors, dry cleaning, haircuts, etc. It is basically all revolved around a structure of power, that the systems often force women to choose between working, which requires neglecting unpaid domestic work, or relying on men, reinforcing traditional power structures as a whole. Basically, when we can argue, theoretically, capitalism and sexism should always coexist in some capacity. Does that mean capitalism is bad? No. It just means that the capitalist society that we have now is bad and is basically thriving off of gender inequality as a whole, leading us to now basically become the big sister. Now, I know what you're thinking. What do you mean by big sister? I'll get into that soon. Now, if you've been a big sister and you know about the big sister effect, you can see where we're going with this. If girls are taught to mature faster, then They're taught to understand capitalism faster, taught that they must sacrifice things for the greater good and become caregivers sooner. Hey icons, it's me, Mila Duffy, and welcome back to The Desktop Vanity, a social experiment on beauty and pop culture through a feminist lens so we could become smarter, sexier, and way more disgustingly educated. Today, we pose a question. Why do fashion dolls apparently suck now? And who actually decided that? And why should we as women of all ages care now? Now, when I mean fashion dolls, I mean everything from Bratz to Monster Highs to American Girl dolls. They're all meant to be really high quality, trendy dolls, usually for older girls. But something has happened to them.
I don't understand. If you're not auditioning for Oklahoma, then why do you look like that? Like what? Like a country music star. In a good way or a bad way? You better be joking. Are you okay, Kat? No! Yes! I am in love with Nick Jacobs and he is in love with me, and you guys can all judge me if you want, but I do not care. I have never, ever been happier. You have got to be kidding.
This is a lesson on who builds the narrative of fashion dolls sucking now. And they don't suck now. Toy industries are reasonably just responding to societal needs. A quote from an unknown source states, "Girls don't mature faster than boys. Girls are punished from an early age for the same behavior that boys are allowed to indulge in well into adulthood." It has to do with social conditioning. Before we get deep into that, we must first establish what happened to fashion dolls in the first place, and why is it potentially hurting women everywhere. First off, who is deciding that fashion dolls suck now? Well, first, we need to look at the critiques that fashion dolls apparently have now, and who is critiquing them. It's not kids, and it's not young girls, it's actually collectors. It's kid adults, people who are collecting these dolls as adults now. What does that actually mean, though? What does this have to do with anything? Well, here's the critique, and the critique is really important because it's actually going to play a pivotal role that discerns why the tween era is dying. Spoiler alert. We're going to get into that in a moment. Basically, the critique is they're sturdy, they look younger, they don't have as much detail, they're not as fashionable. And that might have to do with actually the age demographic of who's playing with these dolls now that tweens are no longer playing with them. According to More Than Play, The Power of Fashion Dolls, older kids, aka adults, are starting to collect dolls in their daily life, not as a form of nostalgia, but rather as something therapeutic, according to reports and surveys. This is just basically a great way for younger people, especially kids, to help with great communication skills, social skills, empathy, building their own self-identity free from the internet where someone is telling you what to be rather than you figuring it out for yourself. Now, why are we talking about collectors, and why are they the ones deciding it? Well, that's a lesson in taste and in the hierarchy of who makes culture and cultural taste. But what really sucks now is actually that they're made for much more younger kids. Think about what I said earlier, that they don't have small, cute details. They don't look like older girls. They're meant to emulate younger people, and they're more sturdy and mobile and simpler in design. It's because they're meant for rough play. Those cute little heels, choking hazards. Those like dolls that look anemic or whatever, or like look like they are absolutely starving, not appropriate for an 8-year-old. According to an academic study, the cap off of imaginative play dolls, specifically puppeteering, which I consider also fashion dolls, is a hard cutoff around 6 and 8 years old of play, leading to an actually big gap on toys that are marketed towards tweens, where now tweens are wanting more sensory toys like slime and puzzles and things that basically are meant to be fidgety, or even collectors as well, which is a story for another time. Trinket mania is a whole nother ballgame. Basically, the average tween is no longer playing with dolls anymore because the tween era is dying, which we'll also get into in chapter 3 of this video. No need for another video. It's all in one go. It's all in one place. Don't worry. But according to this study, they're basically determining what age-appropriate toys are actually attractive to certain kids. And the majority of the time, these imaginative play toys that we've established are actually superpowers for being able to contribute into the creative economy, which is the most freeing thing in the world that allows you to be independent, are being gatekept from older kids that perhaps need it the most. According to a feminist scholar, Patricia Ann Myers-Bax, this is going to be hard for a moment, the cliche, that women more consistently than men turn inward for substance. Seems to me in practice that women have richly defined the ways in which imagination creates possibilities that society denies. Now, could I agree that imagination is extraordinarily powerful for women? Could I agree that without imagination, we will not get very far in anything? Because that imagination leads to ingenuity thinking and independent thinking that allows us to not have to rely on others. It's another way of keeping us out of the kitchen. Now, when actually there is a societal narrative that for a hot second, people believe that men were more imaginative than women, while we are the ones that create you, that create it with our bodies, our blood, our sweat, our tears, our soul, our spirit, all those things, that we are the divine creators of this world, and yet we are considered for a hot second not creative. Well, luckily that was debunked because another study saw that basically gender has no role in creativity. According to Chris Bryan, a professor of business management at Georgia University, actually helped put part in a study all about this that proved that imagination does not discriminate. The fact that the notion that men were more creative than women is patriarchal and disturbing. 99999. Chapter 2. Speaking about studies, this chapter is titled, "Is that a study in your Polly Pocket?" Self-identity and the finding of meaning within your toys is imperative for a young person's adolescent journey. In fact, what toys are being replaced with is the internet and unpoliced access to the internet especially, which is leading to tweens growing up and all becoming homogenized. It's another form of the hegemonic princess, also coined by feminist scholars, where basically now we are being told who and what to be in the American lens, to be the soft, feminine girl that all looks the same, picture perfect. Dolls won't do that, because dolls will sometimes teach you what to be, but they'll teach you how to be it, but they'll also let you imprint meaning onto them. Toys and dolls, they're hollow. They're substanceless. They're meant to be filled with substance when you use and interact with them. That is the whole point of playing with your dolls. According to Dolls, Play, and the History of American Girlhoods, an interview with Miriam Foreman Brunel, the history of girls and play and how young people play, especially in girlhood, has always been heavily understudied and only just started being studied in the 70s and 80s. What? And this scholar actually puts that into its place. Girls' identities are shaped not exclusively by the toys that we played with, but her research has shown that dolls were not just passive objects, but were actually a reflection of the changing notions of what it meant to be a woman in society. Just like how before Barbie, we had baby dolls teaching girls that they can be wives, mothers, mothers and wives, mothers and wives, mothers and wives. But then Barbie came and suddenly Barbie could be anything.
Hey, I'm gonna be exactly like you. Till then, I know just what I'll do. Barbie, beautiful Barbie. I'll make believe that I am you.
You can be anything. There was an uproar. People did not want to buy their girls' Barbie dolls until they saw that commercial with her in a wedding dress. Like, oh my gosh, yes. My priorities is that my daughter gets married someday and has a child. I don't want her to be an astronaut. She can be an astronaut. She's got to be married. That's what that was. Dolls were helping young people engage with the struggles and definitions of what it meant to be a girl, helping act out what they wanted their future to be. It was manifestation. We do not get that in the same capacity with the internet, because now the timeline, the cycle, the journey to self-development and realization has collapsed. No longer with any trials or errors where you can figure out for yourself, build your own taste, build your own life. Now it's being told to you. Now it's being told what is tasteful, what is you. And no teenage girl wants to be told who she is. The concept of girlhoods has always been shaped by dominant cultures and subcultures with that hegemonic princess or soft girl aesthetic that we have spoken about. And that is all basically a cluster F word of traditional ideals that are pressed onto women. And there's already studies that show that when we are in economic distress, gender roles become more apparent and we start leaning into traditional gender roles. That's why we're seeing a rise in young people entering the trad wife era, because women are sick of whatever this economy we're having and we're wanting to opt out a little. And that is just not fair for an assumption for everyone to make. But I know for a fact that when we have economic distress, traditional gender roles seem to heighten, which I believe leads to younger girls growing up faster simply because now they are getting the big sister effect. They are now becoming aware of capitalism early on. They are aware that not everything costs money and they cost money, and that they take up more space, and that they have to have the sacrifice of knowing and the burden of knowing that they are them, if that makes sense. Now, young girls are having the burden of knowing what capitalism is at too young of an age and having to carry that weight on behalf of all the other children in the room. Now, they're worried about, oh, I really want this for Christmas, but I don't think my mom can afford it. We don't want to internalize that. It's also teaching girls, priming girls at a younger age to become caregivers, to become less independent, to become less thinking. It is all just another form of social conditioning that leads to what I call Gilead. I don't call that. That's pre-written in history. Chapter 3. The tween era has gone away. According to scholars, the tween era disappeared in around the 2018, roughly. And this kind of just happened in one go. Tiger Beat and Nickelodeon stopped doing tween stuff. Disney stopped doing tween stuff. We stopped having tween toys. Those tween toys that are toys for older girls that are fun and crafty and all about beauty and nail polish. You can find those at the back of Michael's now. They still make them, just not for Toys R Us. We don't got Toys R Us no more. We don't got Toys R Us money no more because it doesn't exist anymore. But tweens are going bygone. And now marketers have actually made the conscious decision of where to lump them in. Are we going to lump them in with the younger kids, or are we going to lump them with the older kids? What is going to be the most strenuous and difficult for them? They decided to go with the latter, older kids. With older kids now, they're now being pressed into a new era. Instead of watching Victorious, which I would argue was not meant for children in the first place, but was marketed towards us. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But now we're seeing people watch Glee, to Vampire Diaries, to The Office, because you didn't have your personality yet. Usually stuff like that. And next thing you know, you're having unpoliced access to the internet. You're now a Sephora kid. You want to go and try on all the makeup and skincare and have all the things that you really don't need yet. You are now basically being told by the internet how to use a tampon, how to wear a bra before your mom gets to you to talk to you about that. You're being told and understood what these things are to be a woman, but you're being told what it means to be a woman. You're not being taught, per se. That's the problem with TikTok. And that's also the problem with my main thesis. Beauty influencers are replacing fashion dolls. Beauty influencers are now basically teaching girls taste, which is not a thing, but you're teaching them what they meant to be, who they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to dress, etc. What is trendy, what is not. It is a form of homogenized behavior that I believe is inherently, although fun to watch this content, is still kind of harmful, because you are no longer giving people the opportunity young people to discern what they find tasteful, what they find trendy, what they find about themselves beautiful and fun to be. That's what dolls were supposed to do. Since dolls didn't have the substance, you had to make it and find it yourself. This relates to the double standard that I wanted to discuss with you about, and that is the social conditioning, the myth that girls mature faster than boys. Hey, it's me, editing Mila. I just had a breakfast burrito after the dentist. Very counterintuitive, I know. Back to it. I actually did a little extra research just to make sure that I was on the right track, and god damn it, all of the studies that I have looked at indicate through a neurological and biological factor that supposedly women do biologically mature faster than boys and go through puberty quicker and sooner. However, this is heavily criticized. If I looked a little deeper, you would see I noticed it was heavily criticized because they didn't take into account social conditioning or other social or societal factors that could make women have more responsibility early on in life. and still have to have that burden of knowing and being an adult and knowing of the world. And I just want to make it clear that yes, there are studies that indicate that women do mature faster than boys, but those studies never take into account societal factors at all, or social conditioning or cultural factors at all. They take into account neurological and biological factors, which I can argue through epigenetics is all heavily intertwined as a whole, because what we go through can eventually influence our genetics, supposedly. Imagine that you're on the playground, you're young, and you were told that the reason why this boy was allowed to act like a little monster was because, oh, he's just young. He doesn't mature as fast. Girls mature faster than boys. That is not true. We mature at the same rate. There's just a double standard of what and how a girl is supposed to act, how compared to a boy in that age demographic. We need to, in order to consume this conclusion, to talk about these things, we need to take that out of the brain, and we need to start rejecting the myth that girls mature faster than boys. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to younger generation. Just like how it isn't fair to say that if a boy is teasing you, that means he likes you. That's just teaching girls to tolerate bullying as fuck. Though they traded defense work for housework and war production for reproduction, the new emphasis on maternal devotion and family togetherness left many women with no real choice aside from full-time childbearing and rearing. But basically, it's referring to the fact that when men came back from World War II, when the war was over, women were no longer building the parachutes or the everything, doing all the work at home. And women loved this newfound independence, but then it was all taken away because everyone was being pushed back to this original variation of what we wanted, of everything of the sorts. This type of rebellion and this type of dysfunction can be seen through the American history of babysitters, written by this favorite author of mine that I've already quoted before. Miriam Brunel has quoted saying that. And through basically her doing the work and the history of babysitters, she was able to conclude that babysitting was patriarchal in a sense where it was a form of social conditioning to teach younger women to give up their social lives to rear children, other people's children, for meek pay. It was just another way of unpaid labor. And I know what you're thinking, it was paid, but at what cost?
6,767,600,000,000.
It was very common for eons for girls who would babysit, teenage girls who would babysit, to get stifled. It happened to me. I've definitely missed a few checks because of that. Like, I definitely had people like shave off like a $20 or $30 when they came home late, when they really shouldn't have. And I watched them make that conscious decision. Still love the kids, but that happened to me when I was a teenager. It happens now, to the point where there was a time where in the 50s and 60s, they had to form babysitter unions in the local area to make sure people didn't stiff one up on you. Make sure people didn't cut you short when you stayed and watched their crying toddler for 5 hours while you went and had a movie and then made another toddler. Just cheap labor. And this is a full reflection of the concept of frickin' girlhood. Guys, I'm so sorry. According to scholar Miriam Foreman Brunel, many young adults supposed to look at the 50s as the golden age of babysitters, aka girlhood, which never existed because it was a form of modernized, barely paid labor that primed younger people, especially women, to caregiving roles. The absence of toys early on, to now the societal pressure, to growing up, to acting and emulating adulthood, to then being sacrificed in a sense where now younger girls, teenagers, are being given the burden of knowing about capitalism when they're just a child, making the sacrifices on behalf of other people, having the burden of knowing as much as your parents do. On top of that, we have this whole entire weird sector that gets into this mess, in the sense where we are now conditioning girls that they can now be caregivers younger. We're just basically doing that. It's just like another form of parentification, in my opinion, where I really see that when we teach girls to grow up way faster because they, quote, mature faster, it's just another excuse so they can take care of the people around us faster. It's another way of them benefiting the patriarchal society that wants women to stay immobile, to not be creative, to not be imaginative, to not be entrepreneurial, and to just be caregivers. We see this through the patriarchal belief that babysitting is patriarchal and is like a thing of the American times. And we see that through the erasure of girlhood, how media plays a huge role, how suddenly overnight tween media was no longer a thing. It just wasn't. Because of the rise of the internet and how fast everything is moving now, tween media did not need to exist anymore. But I'd have to wonder, are we recovering now as everyone's going analog? People are collecting magazines now. People are collecting dolls again. People are playing with toys again as adults. Is this us regressing back to a better time or regressing in maturity? I think that, honestly, this is a great opportunity for us to reclaim womanhood, to reclaim what it means to be imaginative, empowered, and girlhood, to reclaim what it means for us to be a woman more than just a doll. It's meant for us to find meaning within ourselves. And I think it's the best part is that it is the opportunity for a young person to find out who they want to be without another adult telling them who they should be at the same time, which is, I think, every teenager's dream. This was the Desktop Vanity on my new name channel, Mila's Thoughts Lately. If you really love this subject, check out the recent Substack article on my Substack, the Desktop Vanity, titled Why Dolls Suck Now. That basically goes into a slightly lesser, deeper dive, but a really good quick read that you can then get a glimpse of what the mentality is, how social conditioning, patriarchy, and everything play a role in the erasure of girlhood and imaginative play fashion dolls. If you enjoyed this, please support the pages as I'm trying to find my footing, as I'm trying to rebrand, and I hope you guys all slay. And remember, you are smart, sexy, beautiful, and powerful, and please do everything you can to be disgustingly educated, because then the birth rate will go lower. No, I'm kidding. Am I? I'm kidding. Please support my pages, Instagram, TikTok here, and also feel free to support the Substack, the Desktop Vanity, link in bio. And on top of that, there is a lot of free content on my Substack. If you decide to buy me a matcha once a month, you get access to long form content that is exclusive to Substack, exclusive podcast episodes, exclusive series on Substack, and deep dive podcast episodes that are also exclusive. So you'll basically get a little extra juice. See you guys next time. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. See you guys next time. Bye.